And I try not to be that picky and things, but when Mark Ruffalo jumped in the helicopter, fine. When he overpowered it, fine. When he used the rear propeller to blow up the garrison, I was like, nah, okay, sure. And then when it exploded and the tumble turned with him inside as a fireball, and he came out unscathed, it was like...
He had blood on his head.
Yeah, little cut. He's getting a plaster for that, Coves.
It was kind of funny when he's like there trying to say, no, it's all under control, and half like the castle is on fire and there's complete chaos.
Yeah.
It's like...
I loved it.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Today I'm joined by Paul.
Hello.
Liam.
Hello.
Helen.
Hi.
And we're going to be talking about the last castle. Not the first one, the last one.
Thank you as always to the mighty people for the mighty tunes, and thanks to Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills.
Please do remember to write a review and rate us on Apple Podcasts and anywhere you can do where you listen to the podcast, because it really does help us.
And you can join in the conversation with us on Twitter
At FlixWatcherPod and on Instagram
at Flixwatcher.
Hello, film fans. Welcome to Flixwatcher podcast. Our guests today are Paul and Liam. Over to you, please, Liam, to say hello to our listeners and tell them a little bit more about who you are and what you do, please.
Well, hello guys. First of all, it's an absolute disaster because I haven't seen the first Castle, so I completely missed out. Didn't realise it was a sequel or anything, so I don't know what we're going to do about that. But I'm Liam, one of the co-hosts of Spocklight, the Star Trek podcast from a non-Trekkie perspective. Been on a couple of times before, so some people might have heard me on the show previously. But yeah, our podcast has been going... Oh God, I think coming up to 7 years now, I think, which is pretty crazy. I think that'll be in September time. We literally have our anniversary on the same date that Star Trek has its anniversary, because we launched our show on the 50th anniversary.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, no, and I do also some TV reviews for BBC Local Radio occasionally as well.
Nice. And Paul, who are you?
Hi, I'm Paul. I'm a co-host at Spocklight as well. But the inception of that podcast, like slightly different from my perspective, as I was somewhat of a lapsed Trekkie. So it's slightly in the closet, and I think it was an attempt by me to force my friends to talk about Star Trek with me, and they didn't know anything about it. So introduced the concept of like, can I make them fans of the franchise through the films alone? So 13 episodes seemed like not a particularly tall order, and that was the beginning. But now we've got way more episodes than I could ever imagine. I think we've done over 100 now, haven't we?
We have done over 100, yeah.
Yeah, and it's gone places.
So we've had Matt on the show before, as well as part of the Spocklight crew. I think Matt's been on a couple of times now. So what was it for yourself, Liam and Matt? Why were you not Trekkers, Trekkies, Trekkites, Trekkadiculuses, or whatever you want to call yourselves?
I mean, I had seen, it wasn't like I'd never watched any Star Trek or anything like that. I'd seen all the films, but I'd seen them as a film fan first rather than a Star Trek fan. And although I like sci-fi, so it had kind of appealed to me, there was just something about Star Trek, a slight kind of disconnect with it that just never latched onto me. And it wasn't until we did this podcast that I came to really appreciate its importance and kind of, just how unique a storytelling engine it can be.
Yeah, and now Liam screams, "I get it," into the Grand Canyon as a Gandolfini reference for us.
You a Trekkie, Trekkerite, Helen?
No. I think I may have seen like some films growing up, and then The Next Generation used to be on BBC Two at the same time as Tea Time, so I used to watch that semi-regularly with dinner, but I've seen like the reboot films, the Chris Pine ones, and they were kind of fun, but I don't know, it's a big commitment to get into. I mean, how many films, how many episodes? It's just...
How many different series?
I don't know if I've got the eyes in me to watch it all.
Yeah, I mean, we're currently on, I think, 11 different TV series at least, and 13 films. So that is, and each of those TV series, some of them have up to 7 seasons. So yeah, that is a lot.
7 seasons of 25 episode orders.
Yeah,
That's
classic
like
network
the classic
style
90s style. Yeah.
I'm trying to watch Star Wars Clone Wars TV series ahead of, as we record this, they've announced new Star Wars coming out, and it's become apparent that it might help if I know some more Star Wars before the series comes out.
It shouldn't have to, though, should it?
How much
really?
more can you possibly know?
Yeah, that's the trouble. It's like they're filling in the blanks with the Star Wars canon. Just like, that bit where they just popped out the door there. We're going to make a whole spin-off show about that. So it's like, you wouldn't believe the adventure they had going to the toilet.
Is this Ahsoka that you're trying to get ready for? Well, I mean, I'd say in terms of Clone Wars, just ignore the CGI show and just watch Genndy Tartakovsky's amazing 3-minute Clone Wars animations. They're absolutely incredible. But Ahsoka's not in them, I don't think so.
I'm happy watching Clone Wars and things, but I was put off by the 20 plus episode season. I was like, oh, come on, guys. Anyway, we're not talking about TV shows, Ahsoka, Star Wars related. Obviously, there's a tangential link to, more than a tangential link to Star Trek, because that's where you guys come from. But we're here to talk about The Last Castle. So The Last Castle was your choice, Paul. Can you tell us, first of all, why you chose it? And then I'll get the timer. And you've got 60 seconds, you've got less than 60 seconds to tell us what it's about, what happens.
Okay, so under 60 seconds, it's going to be quite quick to tell you, but this kind of film, straight from Wikipedia, portrays a struggle between inmates and the warden of a military prison based on the United States disciplinary barracks at Fort Leavenworth. But maybe doesn't photograph as well as Leavenworth. So this is in a castle setting. Highly decorated US Army Lieutenant General, played by Robert Redford, is court-martialed and sentenced for insubordination. Challenges the prison commandant, a colonel, which is played by James Gandolfini, over his treatment of the prisoners. And after mobilizing the inmates, the former general leads an uprising aiming to seize control of the prison. So that's kind of like broad strokes, a bit more nuance in it. Not too much more nuance. It is quite a straightforward, simple film to follow.
So why did you choose it? You haven't explained that bit.
I chose it because I guess it was just, I was on a massive Redford kick a couple of years ago when I saw this movie, and there's the Gandolfini factor, and I know Liam's just such a massive fan of James Gandolfini in his favourite show of all time, The Sopranos, and I just thought the combination...
What, not Star Wars Next Generation?
Star Wars The Next Generation. A non-existent show. No, yeah, I prefer The Sopranos over the show you just made up.
Yeah, so I think it was just, I just really want to chat about Liam. I know this show's about just chatting movies, so let's get into it.
Yeah, fair enough. So, I mean, we talk about Sopranos. I mean, James Gandolfini is The Sopranos. He's known before and after Sopranos is not that much, unfortunately. And we lost him too early. But where is this in his Sopranos career? How famous was he?
Sopranos was a hit out the gate. It was transformative and a phenomenon. So this is season 3, just shot 2, moving into 3. The height of his fame, Sopranos is it just gets bigger and bigger, but it was already big. So he's going to be winning an Emmy around about now, for leading a primetime series. So, he's getting the accolades. I mean, a lot of people bought stock in Gandolfini in the 90s, when he started appearing in bit parts in Tony Scott movies and Crimson Tide, True Romance. He's got
He's got a great scene in True Romance.
Yeah, it's unforgettable. And I think, everybody saw The Promise, but, could this be a leading man? I don't think until Sopranos you could have pegged that he was going to be an amazing character actor no matter what. And so with Sopranos being a massive hit and probably taking up quite a lot of his time, that he unfortunately was with us all too soon, he was taken from us. There are few and far between movie roles for Gandolfini to showcase his talents on the big screen. And I felt that this is probably one of the most high profile or biggest sort of Hollywood epics he was ever in. And he's the co-lead, essentially, opposite one of Hollywood greats. So, yeah, to give Gandolfini that platform, I think it's a good way to assess, his big screen persona.
I've got to admit, even though I'm a fan of Redford and Ruffalo and Gandolfini and Delroy Linda, I'd never heard of this film. So when you suggested it, I was like, what is this film that... I've got James Gandolfini. Okay, I'll watch it.
There's another reason I'm ticking off every Jerry Goldsmith score that he's ever done.
Oh, fair enough.
My favourite movie composer, and he does the score here. Not one of his best, but it's in there, so it's got to be watched.
What about yourself, Helen? Have you seen this film before? Where do you rank on Sopranos, Redford? I know you're a Ruffalo fan.
So I had heard of this. I'd never seen it. And I was surprised that it's snuck into the noughties. It was in 2001 where I feel as though it crawled out of the 90s and just snuck in there. So yeah, I hadn't seen it before. And Liam knows that I haven't watched The Sopranos. And it's just, I just need to have some time. And I have said that it's the next TV series that I will watch. But I hadn't seen it. And yes, I do love Mark Ruffalo. It's far too beautiful to be in jail, I think. But so this is great that you've made me watch it, because that gets me closer to completion on Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd hate to have seen Ruffalo in Oz. I don't think it lasted 5 minutes before he's holding on to like J.K. Simmons's like, you know, hand.
It's Nazi whining. So, yeah. I mean, this is one thing I like about this. I'm interested about this film is that it starts off. Well, first of all, it's like a military prison, so everyone's has had a historic kind of rank to them, which sets it apart. Second thing is that it starts off like you typically have the gangs, normally the whites and the non-whites, arguing against each other. But when Redford steps in there, all that seems to just disappear. It's like there's no animosity, no racism, no whatever else there might be, apart from everyone's singly focused against James Gandolfini. And I found that like an interesting premise. This one guy was so hated by everyone in the team, that everyone in the prison, that worked together to try and oust him. I don't know, Liam, have you seen this before for a start?
I hadn't seen it before, no. It was very much on my list because of Gandolfini, because he's probably my favourite actor, in all honesty, simply because of his performance in The Sopranos. Like, for a long time, I was kind of like, can Gandolfini just be my favourite actor just because of Sopranos? But then I was like, you know what? Yes, he can. His performance over 6, almost 7 seasons
depending how you count,
the best TV show of all time. You know, he kind of totally proves it. He does everything for me within that show that could possibly be asked of an actor. And so, yeah, I've been hunting down all his kind of film roles as well. And so, yeah, I really wanted to see this. And yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I think the military prison setting does really set it apart, and means it's something different from the standard prison movie, because like you say, it's the environment is very different, because people aren't acting like they usually do in prison movies, because everyone's a little bit more civilized, kind of. Basically, there is kind of some animosity here and there, but I think because they all come from a military background, and you can get thrown into military prison for weird things, you know, they're not all kind of murderers and stuff like that. It's a different kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, these men are hardened killers as well. Like, it seems to be a very hard place to sort of manage, you know. I think they do make Gandolfini like alludes to that. It's like there's not a lot of us and there's a lot of them, and they're also all chained to kill by the most fearsome like army in the world. So it does set things up really nicely. And I appreciate your point, Kobe, about like the sort of the dropping of the kind of racial animosity of those things. It just feels like this film is quite stripped out from all of the kind of subplots sometimes you see popping up in prison movies, where everybody's got to have a little backstory or something else going on. I think the unifying force of Redford as a leader, like a decorated leader, you know, and how revered he is coming into that thing, just unifies that focus against Gandolfini. Without a leader, they're all over the place. You know, they're chickens.
I thought what do you guys make of the reason Gandolfini, when he meets Redford's character, he's fawning all over him, and he goes away to get the book, and Redford's character's like, this guy's a loser. He's not even seen battle before. And then that's it. From that point on, Gandolfini's
the game of chess begins.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of the best moments in the film for me, and one of Gandolfini's best acting moments. That moment where, yeah, he turns up and Gandolfini's so kind of hero worshipping him completely, and he says, "Oh, can you sign my book? I'll just go get it." And he like goes up to get it, and then yeah, like you say, Redford slags him off behind his back, and he literally comes in the background of the shot, and he hears, and he like goes back, and there's this amazing moment where he just disappears into the other room for a minute, and you see Gandolfini looks like he's been hit in the gut. He really kind of like, you can see it's hurt him so much, and he just puts that book down, goes back out, and everything's changed, and now it's like, we are enemies. That's it. And it's such a good turn.
I think it's good that it's something quite so innocuous as well, and it is a petty thing, but it kind of sets everything up, because you know that this warden, like, that's what it'll take to push him. Like that's all it takes. It's just like her ego, his bruised kind of like person. That he loves military history, and this guy's just sort of like said all the things you love. Like you're not worthy of any of this. And I thought it was a brilliant to start it small, so it can build. And I think that the game of tit for tat, it sort of escalates. It's a really good slow burn, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's going to tip over. The boiling point's coming, but it's just so entertaining watching these two run each other the wrong way.
Helen, do you want to talk about how it escalates?
Well, I was just going to say, and then you kind of have like, it's coming, that the chest of war tokens and trinkets gets smashed to pieces, and his sacred flag is stolen, and it all goes to pot. But you can tell that Redford knows him before he's even met him. But I was just going to say that, I mean, this film is pretty corny, and it's I think it's due to the power of Redford.
You mean the carrying the rocks back and forth the whole time and everyone getting behind him? Was that?
I'm not even sure they were real rocks, Kobe. I'm not even sure that was a real castle. I think that it may have been a fake castle on a studio lot. I think it's the power of Robert Redford that I don't think there's that many people around at the moment that have his kind of star power, because he manages to be so many kind of like different versions of this one person, and he also manages to carry the rocks really well, and like he's super buff and he's got scars on his back.
Yeah, how old was he? How old is he at this point?
I was thinking that. I was thinking Redford looks in decent nick, considering he must be getting on a bit by this point.
I think
you would have thought he'd be in his like 60s at this point.
Let's check. How old was Redford?
But his twinkly eyes managed to win everyone over, and he manages to win over some of the more slippery kind of characters super quickly. And I mean, he's just got star power, and I think if it wasn't for him
65
and can carry those rocks backwards and forwards.
Pretty good.
I mean, we're in an age now where your age, how old you are, doesn't necessarily hold you back, but back then it did more than
it did.
yeah in 2001.
Yeah.
So now we've got the Keanu Reeves, you've got the Cruises who are managing to, but he looked really like in really, really good shape. I was like, he looks like he's just run the 400 meters in the Olympics.
Well, it helps that verisimilitude of like this guy having a background, doesn't it? Because Redford has to shake off the movie star persona. You have the trouble is he's Redford in everything, but like, and I love him for that. But I also feel like this is a different role, like a military man. Like he has to kind of get us to suspend our disbelief. And when he takes his shirt off, you're like, and he's got the scars, he's got the body. It's like, even if he's like 2 years out from retirement, this guy is working it every day. His discipline is there, and he's got the kind of strength of will to like match that warden and beat him easily. Like he's gonna go beyond him. So it becomes immediately dangerous, like to the warden. I think just the way he holds himself.
I think let's talk about a few other. Well, I talked about in the notes other prison films. This is a war film, really, isn't it? As well, it's this adversaries, like dueling adversaries with standing off against each other. And that I took that to be more of that kind of film than a prison film. But obviously, given the setting, you've got to compare against other film
like the
TV
duelists.
shows. You talked about
Shawshank.
Shawshank is obviously
Green Mile.
Yeah.
I think it has a touch of it reminded me slightly as well from a film around that time, just 3 years before The Negotiator.
I was going to say that one as well.
Yeah. Exactly. I think mostly because of Gandolfini and Redford communicating with each other with big walkie-talkies at some point. I think that's most of the reason. But yeah, I think Shawshank is definitely a touchstone for this film. I think there is kind of quite a bit of Shawshank style stuff in it, especially with Robert Redford's character has a touch of the Tim Robbins to him in it.
Well, you got Ruffalo's character is a bit like Red in times that he's like he knows everything within the prison and is kind of outside of the gangs and what goes on as well. And then you also have the kind of the people, the marksmen on the garrisons who could take out anyone on a whim kind of thing. And then you have the head antagonist as well that people kind of rally against.
And the fake hostage situation with the letter is kind of that kind of tricksy, pranksy thing.
Yeah, I think it's a great sort of early way of kind of like getting to show his hand and kind of. So this is a situation where Redford conceives to send a letter saying that, to Delroy Linda, who's basically James Gandolfini's boss, who's already quite aware that his record as like warden is kind of somewhat patchy, and this is a chance to humiliate the warden in the eyes of Lindo and potentially get his job. But yeah, he has a visiting, he gets to speak to Redford one-on-one in the cafeteria. But because he was to kind of convince the warden that he's going to be able to take Lindo prisoner or hostage when he has no intention of doing so. But like the disproportionate response just puts like Gandolfini completely red face, and there's a scene outside. It's a massive dressing down, and it's just I mean, you must have loved that Liam, just to see like the kind of simmering rage that's sort of having to be held in check. It's so well done, isn't it?
Yeah, well, because it's a different kind of role for Gandolfini, because he's not able to be Tony Soprano and kind of rage at all. It's all inward. Like, he's really restrained and locked in because he has to be. And even, when he starts to kind of finally lose it at the end, it takes a long, long time for he's always quite pinched and kind of, not really being able to kind of reveal his true feelings. And also another film, this reminded me of another prison movie, was Lock Up with Stallone, where Donald Sutherland plays the kind of corrupt warden, and that's kind of, again, the kind of battle of the minds between Sly and Don Sutherland, and that this is quite similar as well.
Watched that last week, and I think it's on ITVX. I've actually signed up for the free trial to watch Lock Up. But the thing about that was Don Sutherland had like some really brutal underlings, like some real psycho guards. I think this is what this film kind of lacked, was like Gandolfini didn't have like at disposal like a crack team of head crackers. just send in, add a little bit more danger to it. He felt like he was. I think that also works for this film because he's like having to kind of rein it in. He can't show his top. He can't blow his top and show that he's losing control in front of all these people. That what also sets it differently, where he's like, when you could have an antagonist who's screaming and shouting and swearing and like getting in his face and showing us their true colours. I think that's also quite what makes this a bit of a unique film.
It was kind of funny when he's like there trying to say, no, it's all under control, and half like the castle is on fire and there's complete chaos.
Yeah.
It's like...
I loved it. I think, we get into it, but like the denouement, essentially the riot is one for the ages in terms of like prison riots on film. There are some great ones out there. I've got Natural Born Killers. I don't like that movie, but The Riot is fucking off the chain. Brute Force with Lancaster, another great one. Brawl on Cell Block 99, Liam. That. Yeah, like that one.
I've still not seen that.
Visceral.
It sounds a bit grim for me.
All hell.
Visceral, it's all hell. But this one is so different to all of those, but it's completely satisfying in a way that you just do not get in modern blockbusters at all. So this is quite an awesome thing in 2023 to watch a film that is essentially quite modern, but has no CGI. But these are stunts being done with real helicopters flying quite low over lots of extras. People leaping from things. There's clearly lots of stunt work going on, and practical special effects, which are we call are being kind of conducted by real trained people. Like clearly, when they've got a trebuchet which they've kind of knocked up and it's flinging real rocks through windows. It's just something really exciting about that there's no kind of embellishment or digital trickery to kind of like make that rock break into 50 pieces and go through 3 walls or something like that. It's not needed because it packs a punch the way it is.
I like the way when they brought the trebuchet out and they're like, "What is that?" He's like, "Well, duh." Get it.
Yeah.
Out of the way. This film, I mean, it's quite sad in a way. I don't know if sad's the right word. That we didn't see the final dressing down that Delroy Linda was going to give Gandolfini, because he said, "I'll be there in 20 minutes." I was like, okay, well, I'd love to see what's going to happen in 20 minutes. And then he just...
Oh, yeah.
It was going to be more than a dressing down, Kobe, because
Well, exactly.
he had the cuffs slapped on him at the end. That's the thing. It's like at the end, he literally has the handcuffs put on him,
yeah.
so he's under arrest. He's going to be inside.
It wasn't Linda that did it. It was his second in command.
Yeah, it was second in command.
Maybe deleted scene, maybe. There's a deleted scene out there somewhere.
Yeah. No, I agree that it was like it was quite an abrupt ending. But yeah, what I wanted to see was him being in that prison. Like I wanted to see him end up because like
I would have thought that'd be a bit too corny, the actual being in the prison, but definitely like Linda taking him away. Maybe I don't know. The next day, I just wanted to see him feeling like a small child. Now after he's lost his bottle. Guys, is there anything else you want to say before we head to the scores?
I was just going to say that there was one moment where, I was perfectly happy to go along with a lot of things, but there's one scene where they managed to fake a fight and then the guards disappear for 20 minutes. I was just a bit like, hang on. Hang on.
But they locked him out.
They would not have left an entire prison at mealtime without a single guard.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of suspension of disbelief that's required to take. I think the fact that it is a military prison, you're kind of expecting just to, just be good, okay? We're all here to do our time. I think the fact it's a bit lax in terms of security does kind of play into its own sort of world setting. The world building that's been established, it just feels like there's an honor system here,
Yeah,
beyond,
yeah.
And that's going to come back to bite
Behave
him.
in there.
The thing I took most umbrage over, and I try not to be that picky on things, but when Mark Ruffalo jumped in a helicopter, fine. When he overpowered it, fine. When he used the rear propeller to blow up the garrison, I was like, nah, okay, sure. And then when it exploded and the tumble turned with him inside as a fireball, and he came out unscathed, I was like...
He had blood on his head.
Yeah, little cut. He's getting a plaster for that, Cove.
It's like, oh.
Satisfying explosion, though, hey?
Yeah. It's amazing practical effects. One thing I was going to say just before we go to the scores was I thought it was really clever that they hold back the reason why Robert Redford is in prison until halfway through when Gandolfini reveals it, because it's his trump card to basically turn the other prisoners against him and say, hey, this guy you think is so great, well, he got 8 of his men killed and it was his fault. And because by that up to that point we don't know why he's actually in the prison, and that's an interest. You are kind of wondering, why is he there, kind of thing, and when he reveals that, you're like, holy shit, because not only does it kind of put his whole plan at risk, but it also, as an audience, I must say, it made me think. I was like, is Redford just a bit nuts? In this, is he actually someone we can really trust, or is he just a bit crazy? I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and I think that still remains unanswered at the end. Because he's put everybody in jeopardy to kind of get this one last victory. He's doing it again. I think that's great that it's just sort of. He is the villain as well as the hero of this, and maybe Gandolfini is right. That's something you could take away from it. And I do think, in the world of GDPR, he couldn't have said that in front of all those prisoners. But rules are different then. You could just get somebody's file out and just read out the whole thing. Turns out he wets the bed too.
Sir, think of the DPA.
Well, as we're now venturing into European legislation, I think it's time to head to the scores, guys.
I'm Sam Clements, host of the 90 Minutes or Less Film Festival, another podcast in the Stripped Media family, a podcast that celebrates movies under 90 minutes long. Each episode, I'm joined by a special guest who selects a movie to join our prestigious lineup. Past guests have included fellow Stripped Media family members Martin and Sam from Song by Song, and Kobe from Flixwatcher, and Dave from The Wire Stripped. Search for us now on the app you're currently listening to this podcast, or join us at 90minfilmfest.com.
Welcome to the Flixwatcher scores. All of the scores are out of 5. You can have decimal places if you wish, and we will start with you, please, Paul, with your recommendability.
I would say 3.5, because this is very watchable. It doesn't ask a lot of you. I think it doesn't outstay its welcome. And it's also quite fresh to have something with this amount of practical effects and excitement. And it basically doesn't stick the landing in terms of it. It just has a completely satisfying finale that you sometimes feel about shortchanged these days. So I'd say, if you're flicking through Netflix and you kind of, the star power of Redford and Gandolfini, for me, should sell this movie, at least for a one watch.
I think it's quite... Paul, had you seen this before?
Once, yeah.
Once?
Yeah,
a couple
of years ago.
Out of 4 people here, 3 of us hadn't seen it before. I hadn't heard of it before, even though I both like Robert Redford, Mark Ruffalo, Linda and Gandolfini. Was it just something that kind of came and went, or was it just something that everyone kind of thought it's actually not that good, so don't bother watching it? And people went, yeah.
Me and Liam went to the same college, and there was a poster for this movie in our media studies class.
So I think I remember that actually.
So I mean, that's when I first heard of it. I was like, I did not know this was in the cinemas, but there was just clearly they had a job lot of like posters, just like, this is a media room, let's stick some movie posters up. So it made that list. So it was always in the back of my mind that it existed. Yeah, I think it just came and gone.
It just came too late, I think, for this audience.
But the same year, Redford does Spy Game opposite Brad Pitt with Tony Scott, and like that's massive, you know, getting those two together. So it just thought, I guess it's in its shadow a little bit.
Sometimes films just get lost, don't they, in the mix, I guess.
I mean, I saw the trailer for this in the cinema, so I was aware of it. I remember seeing the trailer in the movie house, but I did look it up and saw that it was a box office flop because it was made for a budget of 72 million and did not make that back. So, you know, I think that's probably maybe why it's not so well remembered, maybe.
But what's your recommendability score, Liam?
I'd give it a 3.7. I think this is a good thriller movie, really different kind of prison film because of the military prison setting. And yeah, I think Redford lends it that kind of classical kind of star power, as Helen said. I mean, I think he's still got that movie star twinkle in here, and you can see why a bunch of people would follow him. Like, I remember that moment where one of the prison officers is about to bring down his asp on Redford. He just catches his arm and stops him, and he's like, "You're better than this." And it's just like, yes, I believe it. I would be. You can tell he's got into that guy's head, and at the end, he's going to turn against Gandolfini. And yeah, I think Gandolfini's fantastic. I kind of like their war of attrition between each other and the way it's set up as like kind of character drama. And like Paul says, you don't get films like this anymore that are made on a big scale, huge stars, practical effects about a film like this is complete original and not based on any kind of IP or anything like that. It's kind of the last shout of a bygone era. So I think it's well worth checking out.
Helen?
So I just had a little bit of a look when it was actually released. So it was released in October in 2001. So I think it probably suffered from being released quite close after 9/11 and whether people were probably not in the mood for kind of
that's
that
true.
kind of film. But yeah, it does feel like maybe if it had been released in like 1996, it might have just done a bit better because it kind of feels a little bit like that. But yeah, I'm going to go with you, Paul, with a 3.5. I think it's very, very solidly in the 3.5. It's a bit ridiculous, but I had a lot of fun with it, and there's some good performances in there, and there's some kind of like funny jokes between the inmates, and yeah, it was good fun.
I'm going to go for, I cannot believe I'm going to be the highest scorer here with a 4.1. It's easy to watch. You don't need to pay attention to it. There's lots of stuff going on all the time. You don't really get tired watching it. I think potentially it's a bit long. Some of the ridiculous bits are like groany, but Gandolfini and Redford, and we've all talked about how awesome Redford is in this. I don't think Ruffalo was showing his potential yet in this film. He's just another person in the mix there.
Not even when he climbed up the chain to the helicopter.
Yeah, but that's not really a Ruffalo thing, is it? He's not. That's not him as what I think of. I think of him like in The Kids Are All Right. For me, that's like a fantastic like Ruffalo performance. I don't really think of him as an action star, really, even though he's the Hulk. I never think of him as that kind of person. But yeah, 4.1. Well, yeah, good. Watch it. It's fun. Pete Breen score. Paul?
Yeah, I got to say, probably a 3, because I think a lot of its desserts are dished up on the first viewing in terms of like the twist with Ruffalo. The appearance of the trebuchet was, me and my wife just went, fuck yes. Like, and she watched it again with me as well. She just watched it with me the first time. And it's not even that a couple of years later on, we're revisiting it for this. And she's like, I want to watch this whole thing again. And she gets a lot out of like Ruffalo's character. And actually she says, he's great. I think she's got the hots for him clearly, but like, she's also like, oh, look at the nuance there. I'm like, just, but, it's just for me, I just love seeing Gandolfini just barely contained rage and just that brilliant, performance of like taking that inward, as Liam put it. It's just delightful to watch. And it's just like, it's such a treat to sort of see him there. These are little bits of his career. I think only Philip Seymour Hoffman, like, is probably, these are some of the most affecting celebrity deaths I've ever had, would be Gandolfini and Seymour Hoffman, really, where you just feel like we've lost an artist. And so to be able to kind of see them here kicking, live and kicking, is great.
Liam?
I'd give it a 3.1. I mean, I enjoyed it, and I would certainly be happy with watching it again at some point, I think. Probably for the Gandolfini performance alone, just because I think, it's probably one of his best film performances, like we've said, although there are lots of, I think he always gives 100% in everything he's in. Like, even if you look at something like Terminal Velocity, the Charlie Sheen like action movie where he's the bad guy, it's not a good film, but he is kind of elevating it completely with his performance. And I think he elevates things here, and I'd happily watch his performance again. So yeah, and I think it's a fun movie, so I'd watch it again.
Helen?
It's over the 2 hour mark, so it's quite a long one. Don't know how many times I'm probably gonna watch it, but if someone was like, "Oh, do you want to watch it this weekend?" I'd probably be like, "Yeah, I guess so." It kind of reminds me of like when you only had about 5 videos at home and you watched the same kind of like The Rock and Con Air and The Negotiator on DVD that you got.
Yeah, that would definitely have been this would have been the lesser video in that person's collection, certainly.
So yeah, as the lesser VHS, I'm going to go 2.5 down the middle.
Yeah, so I'm not sure when I'd watch this again. Like, I loved your phraseology there, Paul. It gives it all. I don't know what you said. All the desserts come in the first sitting. Something more eloquent than that, anyway. I wonder if there's an extended cut of this that explains how they got how they made the firebombs, or how they made the trebuchet and hid it without people knowing, and how they hid things.
I think that's but like that's would kind of ruin a lot of those kind of
reveals.
Well,
that's what I mean. I think if it was made like that, I think this is certainly a better cut. You just want to be there with the prison guards and seeing, hold on, where the hell they made these together. I don't know if in Shawshank, where they showed how Andy slowly scraped away at his tunnel. I wonder if maybe there's a catch-all where they can show the bits of how they put them together after the fact, maybe. But yeah, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna watch it much more. Maybe another time. Small screen score. Paul, you said about the Jerry Goldsmith score potentially leaning towards a quite a good small screen score here.
Yeah, I would say it's. I just say like a 4, because whilst it is shot on film, it looks great. It's not like the coverage is good. It's got good wide shots. So I think if you're kind of like watching on a smaller screen, you're still kind of getting a bit of that impact of some of those kind of shots and kind of the scenery they've done. And it's also going to be in widescreen. I think that kind of benefits from it. But I think that the geography of like the yard and stuff like that, it does work on the small screen, because you're never not aware of where you are at any one time, particularly as the battle unfolds. I think that's what this gets right that so many modern films don't, is that they try and bombard you with too many quick cuts, whip pans, putting you all over the place. And here there's like a genuine kind of like majesty to how the military tactics unfold, and you kind of see each part of the plan in motion. And I think for that point, that all comes across at home. I don't think it needs the big screen to kind of appreciate that.
So what was your score again?
4.
Liam?
I will go with a 3.8. Like Paul says, it's shot on film. This is a big screen movie from a time when that was a thing. And there is stuff in this which I think would look amazing on the big screen, like the big helicopter set piece. And as much as I think it works okay on the small screen or the kind of small to large home screen. But he's just a movie that I'm like, yeah, I saw the trailer in the cinema. I would like to see the film in the cinema. So yeah, 3.8.
Helen?
I don't know why I'm so invested in this, but I've just had a look. So there's at least 14 minutes and 22 seconds of deleted scenes, and there's an alternate ending featurette if you get the DVD. So
I'm sure that'll be on YouTube somewhere.
So if you want to dig into that. So
Last Castle fans have uploaded it for us all to watch,
exactly
5 of us.
I was watching deleted scenes the other day, literally like 2 days ago, on Planes, Trains and Automobiles, because they released like 40 minutes of unreleased footage, some of which is bad, but some of which is like Sorry, Helen, small screen score.
Small screen score, a 5. I think this is perfect for home viewing. I don't want to watch it on a big screen.
What if it was a Prince Charles Cinema, Con Air, The Rock, something else of that genre, and that was part of that. Was sandwiched in the middle. Would you go and get Five Guys at that point, or would you stay and stick
Five
it out?
Guys near there is just chaotic. Like, it would take you 2
You
hours.
have to taste it at the right time. You have to taste it at the right time.
No, it's not enough to get me out of my
Comfy chair.
comfy sofa with the cat.
Helen, what if there was a Ruffalo Q&A in person alongside the film?
Then, yeah, because it would be Mark Ruffalo.
that breaks you. That's the thing that's going to get you to go. Okay.
It takes it down to 4.95. The Ruffalo factor. I'm going to go 4.5. I can't see myself watching the cinema. I thought it was great on the iPad as I watched it this time. Engagement score, Paul.
Yeah, I would say this is a high engagement score. I'm going to say a 4.8 because you get your two titans meeting pretty much out the gate. And you also get a bit of exposition delivered in a very effective and economical way by Gandolfini, talking about who he is, that the way they're going to greet him. He's going to be just like any other prisoner. And yeah, I just think that kind of sets it up really nicely, that you're kind of you don't have to wait around for the two big guys to meet. And the game is set.
Liam.
I would go with a 4.7, really high, to be honest, because this is the first time I'd ever seen it. And I was really engaged throughout, even though I gave the film 3.5 stars and a little heart on Letterboxd. In terms of engagement, I was completely enveloped in it. I was compelled by the film. I was really, really enjoying it. I found it exciting. So yeah, 4.7.
Helen.
I'm going to go a little bit lower, so I'm going to go for a solid 4. I had to watch this across 2 sittings, so I can always tell if I'm super engaged, then I battle on through for the whatever the reasons are to continue watching. But this, I was I've watched about an hour. Yep, I can stop and catch the other hour up again when I'm travelling again. So yeah, it's a good solid 4.
Yeah, I had no idea where this film was going, so it kept me in it all the way through. And I like there's kind of a few checkpoints. Like when Robert Redford first is in the yard and he stood solitary, to attention whilst there's a fight going on, and then I was is he gonna join the guys? What's gonna happen? And each time there's another step, and the pivotal point when he decided to, I'm gonna take him down, and then you see the plan forming. So there's always the next thing that kept me pulling through the film. So 4.5. That gives an overall score of 3.79375.
Yeah.
Decent. Paul and Liam, can you tell everyone where we can find you online? You remind everyone about Spotlight and say goodbye to listeners.
Yeah, you can find Spocklight at Spocklight Pod on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. I'm on Twitter as well at Liam H. Dempsey on there. And yeah, you can find me by listening to Spocklight. We cover a lot more than just Star Trek. We go all over the place covering anything that can be tangentially connected to the Star Trek universe pretty much. So we're about to probably have recently released an episode on the new Dungeons and Dragons film because it stars Chris Pine. And we will be covering all the new Star Trek shows as they come out as well. We've been catching up with them. So we've got Picard Season 3 coming very soon, which we're all very excited about, and lots more besides.
Awesome. Paul, do you want to say anything, or do we just say goodbye at this point?
I salute you, and we'll move on.
You're not allowed to salute in this podcast. You have to do a strange head thing.
We didn't touch on it, but I was just the scene where Gandalf comes to his cell and Redford says, "No, that's not enough. I need your resignation." Is my favourite mid-section scene. If you think about the mid-movie lag, where it kind of goes a bit stale, that scene is the injection in the arm the movie needed. And I think that must have brought a smile to your face, Liam.
yeah. It's just saying he's just
I
need your resignation on my desk by 5 p.m. And by my desk, I mean my cell.
On that bombshell, guys, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on. Bye.
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 Enjoyed this episode of Flixwatcher podcast? Why not leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? You can also follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter, and we're at FlixWatcher on Instagram. Thanks as always to the mighty people for their mighty, mighty tunes and Rockwood Audio's editing skills. If you're looking to get your podcast edited as sweet as this, get in touch with Rockwood, ROKK Wood Audio. Tell them Flixwatcher sent you.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.